Good morning. Welcome to ACAP. This morning, we're glad you're all here today with us. I love seeing some familiar faces, and it's great to see some new faces too here. To be here today, we have a program that is going to help us understand more about communicating with others who have dementia, Alzheimer's, and other dementias. So we're very happy today to have Mary Caldwell. Mary is a gerontologist with Skylark Senior Care. She has a background in social work. She has a master's degree in gerontology and 15 years of professional experience, including work that she's done at 2 area agencies on aging, 3 adult daycare health programs, Mercy Care Rome, Athens Community Council on Aging, and Town Square. She's also worked with the Alzheimer's Association, where she transitioned from a staff member to the volunteer community educator. So she's a collaborative leader in community-based education and programs, and she's passionate about integrating the research and data from AD/RD into healthcare solutions that benefit those who have dementia, and then also those who care for them. So we welcome Mary, and I'll let you start with your presentation. Thank you.
Hi everybody, it's a pleasure to be here. I can usually talk loud enough to not need a microphone, but can you hear me well? Can you hear me well? Yeah, good. You can talk to me, you can raise your hand, you can, be a part of this, presentation. Our risk for developing any chronic disease rises as we age, right? And you will notice that my head shakes a little bit. That's because I have an essential tremor, which I'm not old, I'm 61, but I share that because I don't want you to worry about me. Okay, thanks. I don't want you to worry about me, and I want you to know that, we all have something, right? So, that said, we'll just get on with the program, and then what I would really love is if you would, ask questions as we go along, comment. If you have a story, just let's say it. This is a small group, and we can, have that vibe going on. So we're going to be talking about communicating effectively with those that are living with Alzheimer's or related dementia. I will say that I think it is a broad brushstroke, this program, but and that there are differences, whether a person has Alzheimer's, frontotemporal dementia, Lewy body dementia. There are over 100 types of dementia. But, what's going on here? What did I do? Okay. Sorry. So we're going to be talking, as I said, about communicating effectively. I know you can read slides, so I'm not going to read slides for you. Well, my goodness. Our learning objectives are to understand how dementia affects communication. Again, I'm not going to read this slide, but we're going to be talking about person-centered approach, strategies, and identifying ways, so talking about ways. And I'm going to share some ways, but if you are, first of all, by a show of hands, who in this room is caring for a person living with a type of dementia as a family member or a professional? All right, excellent. So what is communication? Communication, as you probably know, can be verbal, can be physical, can be honestly, if someone's very close to you, you sometimes can kind of guess, right? How they're feeling or what they're thinking by their actions. But dementia does affect how behavior and mood and thoughts. So it's all about how we tell each other what we need, how we share our feelings, how we communicate some of those deeper feelings, love, connection again. So let's just play this game. Which are the following ways that people communicate? What do y'all think? All the above. You would be absolutely correct in that, of course, but I'll have to click it before we can go on. So let me do that. Every time I try to click, the date and everything pops up on the bottom. This is not my computer, so I'm just not super used to it. Yep. So in dementia, the brain suffers damage. It atrophies and it is degenerative, so it continues to damage brain cells, which are called neurons. Have you heard the term neurons? That's just what a brain cell is called. Of course, those changes affect memory, thinking, behavior, and communication skills at a different rate for different people, because who wants to say it with me? If you've met one person with dementia, you've met one person with dementia. So they're caused by the disease, not the person. And this is important to note, because although everything is not Alzheimer's, and we are seeing Alzheimer's, it can hit in the 40s or 50s, anytime a diagnosis is received before age 65. That's referred to as early onset, but there's a younger onset that can be in those 40s and 50s. So, fully formed humans that have personality traits and have their own level of communication that they bring to this. However, I do hear a lot of, well, they're just stubborn, or they've always been like this, or, I think they know. I get a lot of that. They know what they're doing. No, ma'am, they do not. The brain is affected, and that affects behavior, thinking and communication, as we just said. So communication can often be one of the earlier signs, because people are repeating themselves related to memory loss. People are lose words, can lose words like, and that's different than the tip of the tongue. Do you need me to explain that? There are brain changes, just like there are changes to the rest of your body in aging, but dementia is not it is not due to natural aging. So, someone told me just last week that the neurologist diagnosed their father and then looked at her and said, it's nothing to worry about, we're all going to get this if we live long enough. And I hate to be the one to, I'm not discrediting a neurologist, but that is simply false. It requires a special amount of training, and I thankfully have that training. I'm not a neurologist, I'm a gerontologist, I'm not a doctor or a nurse, I'm a social scientist, but this is my area of expertise. So I'm on a research committee at GARD, the Georgia Alzheimer's and Related Disease Collaborative, and we know these things, right? It's not a part of normal aging. So if you, and I do this a lot because I meet many people and talk a lot. I'm a very verbal person, to put it mildly. I think one of my supervisors put it best when she said, Mary, you're an external processor. And that's true. So sometimes I won't remember a name, but I can see the person and I'll go, Now, I'll tell you in a minute. And then surely enough, in a minute, it just comes back to me. So that's a processing thing. That's not a degenerative disease process. There's difficulty organizing words in a way that makes sense. Commonly, you will see someone who has acquired English as a second language, and I mean very fluently. Like I know of a physics professor, a former physics professor, who is originally from another country, and of course this gentleman had full facility of the English language and really a very high facility of it, and now has lost that. So that can be, so it hits these areas of the brain that acquire language, use language, process language, etc. And that's really the problem. And they also become a lot more quiet when previously the person living with dementia would have been very gregarious and talked a lot. You might see that. I would say that's a combination of a change in behavior, personality, and this communication specifically. So a person-centered approach is really favored in healthcare overall at this point, but we're talking really today about communicating with your loved one in your home, or if you are a professional, communicating with the people that you seek to help. And a person-centered approach is really about meeting the person where they are. You use what you know about the person, yes, but you also think about where you are, and we'll go into that more, of the situation that you are in and their ability to absorb what you are saying or the movements you're making, that sort of thing. So you want to certainly, this is really about strengths-based. When you think about someone's strengths and who they are as a person, you want to call on that in this approach to communicate better. You treat them with respect and dignity, and I think that is what everyone really wants to do. And I'm going to take this off here. Is that okay? You, of course, are seeking to treat a person with respect and dignity. I do believe that. I tend to see the angel in people, and I don't think, especially when we're coming from an approach of, boom, you want to do this well, but calling them by their preferred name, and that's probably more for a professional, but, I think terms of endearment work really well as well in a close relationship, an intimate relationship. Please avoid talking about the person as if they are not there. That's a biggie, and it can be sort of a blunder that you make sometimes. Say, you've got a nurse visiting, or you've got, the in-home aide there, or you're at a doctor's appointment or somewhere where they're in the room and you just cannot avoid that. I always recommend, if there needs to be a conversation between the care partner, which is what I call caregivers, that's kind of the new term, but it's the same difference, between care partners and professionals, or care partners and family members, or care partners and somebody like me. I do dementia care navigation, so I speak with families. I've been doing this since I first worked at a AAA, because we assess people for programs. And my suggestion as a gateway counselor was, let's have this conversation when you can take off your rose-colored glasses and really be honest with me about the status of your loved one. And that may be not something that they really need to hear and wouldn't be beneficial to them. There is a loss of confidence that comes immediately with this diagnosis, And we don't really need that at this time when the person is struggling to comprehend, is struggling with depression. You're all struggling with processing the diagnosis. So we want to be able to lift people up, and that's hard to do. You have to say, Dad can't put his jacket on anymore, right? So I would suggest that. Correcting a person with Alzheimer's or a related disease. So if somebody's walking out in the middle of the road, you absolutely need to correct them. This is about safety, but it's just, I mean, that's rare, right? But it's about safety. But it could be some safety in the kitchen or some kind of safety issue. You know, you need to be able to do that quickly and so that they don't, harm themselves. But I don't know when the last time you tried to make anyone do anything, but especially a person living with dementia. It's just, that's a no-go, so I think people get really into that, like I have to be in charge and I have to control and I need to make. Of course, it's out of love for the benefit of the person, but I'm telling you, from my experience, it just don't work. So, validating feelings. Now, this is really important and something for all of us to learn, whether you're caring for a person with dementia or not. Not obviously. Whenever a person is communicating with you something, a struggle or a happiness, whatever it is, they're crying, they're angry, okay? Angry is a good time to pull this one out. And anger in dementia often stems from just a lot of confusion. I think it is really impossible, and I'm saying this from years of experience, I think it is really impossible to overemphasize the confusion that people live with when they are living with some form of dementia. And so that's just always there. And that, of course, makes you feel unsteady in the world, unsure of yourself, not sure what's really going on and where you are, sometimes why you are where you are, sometimes where you are, sometimes what day it is, sometimes what age you are, sometimes who are these people surrounding me, but almost always, why are they trying to get me to do this thing? What's the goal? So whenever someone is expressing themselves to you, one of the very best things you can always do is just validate those feelings. And that's just you recognizing that they're having those feelings and that those feelings are valid. I can see why you're upset. I can see why you're confused. I can see why you're sad. And then if you are also feeling that, it can help to say, I can see why you're feeling that way. I feel that way as well. I understand. And then even further, it is okay for you to have these emotions and for you to be having this reaction. It is okay.
That's good.
Thank you.
Yeah.
So a person-centered approach to communication. And again, even if you are not caring for someone living with dementia, this is just a great thing to know. We want to meet people where they are, right? And what I mean by that is not in the living room. They're in the living room, so go to the living room. I mean, you want to get to you want to sit next to them. You want to, if they're in pain, if they're suffering, and you can see that, there's a lot of psychic suffering with dementia, and you can absolutely feel it. It is palpable. Anybody dealt with that, whether it be sundowning, whether it be confusion, pacing, and sort of not directed, not seemed aimless, their behavior. Has anybody experienced that? Right. So that is a behavior. So this disease is physical. It is not a mental illness at all. It is a physical disease that presents itself behaviorally, psychologically. So what you will not see is someone who looks like there's something wrong with them, right? What you will see is behaviors that tell you something's wrong. Mom is upset. It's 4 o'clock in the afternoon. She's pacing, she's wringing her hands. She doesn't know what to do with herself. That's what it is. So you want to meet them there in that space. Like, don't pretend it's all rainbows and unicorns if somebody is upset, right? You can try to distract, but it's different to just offhandedly not recognize that there's an issue. Alzheimer's or any other dementia is not a bad case of stupid. So if they're upset, they know probably on some level that they are. And you want to speak in slow, steady tones, right? Just take a moment, breathe, and understand that although you are in close proximity to this person and you can sometimes literally feel their pain, feel their anger, it is not yours. It is not yours, right? So recognize that and just let it go through you. Breathe deeply. Understand that your job is not to jump in, to that confusion with them, but to be steady and calm with them through it. You're the guidepost. You're the rock, right? You're the rock. Acknowledge what they're saying. And it could be fantastical. It can be a hallucination. It can be a delusion. The difference between hallucination and delusion, anybody know what that is? I think it's important to know in this conversation. So a delusion is a hard, fast, held belief about something that is not true. So my children are taking my money. I had, a dog yesterday and today I don't, right? Something like that. A hallucination can be auditory and visual, or, one or the other, or one singular. And it is seeing and hearing things that do not exist. It's just, do you see those children playing out on the lawn and there are no children on the lawn? That's a hallucination, right? In both instances, I think just acknowledging that is important. So you're stepping into it with them, right? It's not the time to go, oh, are you crazy? There are no people. Yes.
Just hang out there. Maybe this to you.
So adding to what you're talking about with the hallucinations, my grandmother, she had Alzheimer's and sundowners. So she had this, so at night she would be in her room and there's no wildlife and no bears around her and she would scream that there's a bear coming down the driveway and there's blood all over it, and this would happen at midnight, so we'd wake up and I'd have to take care of her. And okay, the bear's not here now, it's not coming back. You're fine. I'd have to spend 2 hours calming her down, but I'd have to acknowledge her feelings, make sure she didn't feel crazy, but she wasn't, and then calm her down. And then eventually she was fine to go back to bed eventually. But yeah, I agree that it's really important to acknowledge that even if it's totally insane, if it's not real, you need to let them know that, like, hey, your feeling is real, at least. What's your name? Elizabeth.
Elizabeth, thank you so much. Thank you for caregiving for your tough job. I couldn't agree more. The bear to her was there, and that's the thing. It's a disease process in the brain. And so to her, that bear was there. And that's, this is the time to pull out the little white lines or the big white lines so that, we saw the bear, they came and got it, and it's being taken care of, we're safe, right? Something like that. And oh, look at this shiny thing, how about a cookie? I mean, something to distract, But sometimes it takes quite a while because this can be very fixed, It's fine. And again, to them, it is absolutely real and it is happening.
So if you're saying it's not happening, then you're bringing in a reality that they just are like, well, are you crazy? Then have you ever heard this? I don't know what's your problem. I don't know what you think my problem is. I don't have a problem. You're the one with the problem. That's kind of how this works. So, have conversations about family, friends in your lives, now that's good. That's called reminiscing. And it can be a really good distraction because the long-term memories, you've probably heard this, it's been known for a long time, the long-term memories tend to stay the longest, and they're more embedded, they have more neuronal connections. So the brain really knows how to travel that neural pathway and go back to the day when you were 12 or when you were whatever, or first married, or, you can talk about things that happened 30, 20, 40 years ago, a lot more than you can talk about now because you're no longer forming memories like that. And what that does is bring back the confidence. It centers them in their being. I am that person who married Joe 45 years ago. I am that daughter of Marie. I do have this family that loves me, right? All that stuff, very centering, very bolstering, and helps self-confidence, and really, in my opinion, brings you back to the love in your life. I see this work as very much about love, just to be completely clear. Be patient. So, how many people in this room consider themselves a patient person? Yeah. I'm not raising my hand, and that's because I understand that I have limits to my patience. I'm told all the time that I'm the most patient person in the world, but I'm not perfect. None of us are perfect, and I'd just like to say that as a care partner, this comes into play a lot. There are feelings of guilt. There are feelings that I'm not patient enough. I should be more patient. But I want you to know that this is a terminal brain disease. It will kill you if something doesn't kill you before this. But, I hear a lot, oh, my mom is in late, mid-stage, and indeed the mom will be when I meet them, but she's perfectly healthy. Have you ever heard that? Perfectly healthy. Doesn't have a heart problem, only on 2 or 3 medications, great for 85. And, I am patient in that moment because I realize that the person does not fully understand that I don't care how healthy you are from here down, without your brain, your body's not going to function. So no, you're not healthy. Anyone with dementia is not healthy. It's a life-threatening disease. It's a terminal disease. So we have care partners that struggle to care for people because with any other terminal disease, such as cancer, such as you name it, COPD, there are so many chronic diseases that last a long time where people have a decline over this period of time and become, need more and more assistance. It's recognized in these diseases that, well, of course you cannot handle a cancer patient at home on your own. You're going to need doctors. You're going to need this treatment, that treatment. You're going to need social workers. You're going to need this and that. For some reason, Alzheimer's is just widely not treated that way. That level of support is not given. And care partners therefore think, well, it's up to me. So you're handling a terminal disease on your own, in your home, often with very little support. Your behavior appears to look like you are losing patience, but really what you are doing is suffering from a very big care partner burden So be kind to yourself. But, you know, what really brings the level of cortisol down for the care partner and the person living with a dementia is to, you know what, just stop. Just stop. You know, if there's a problem in communication, right, whatever it is, somebody, you need to communicate with them, you know, it can be 1,000 things, but somebody's upset, some problem is going on. And, you know, if it's, I called somebody by the wrong name, just let that one roll off your back. Or granddad didn't know grandbaby for the first time. Again, roll off your back. These little things, those are little things. Trust me, those are little things. I'm talking about a situation, right? It's time to go to the doctor and dad is refusing to get dressed and go. And you've been waiting for this appointment for months. We all know how that is. So, what is required, really, is just stop. I know you're in a hurry. Here's another rule of caring for someone with dementia. Your days of getting in a hurry are just over. Those days are over. You cannot do that. And there is no such thing as hurrying up a person living with dementia. You know, there is no such of a thing. So just know you're going to give yourself plenty of time, them plenty of time, and just do not be in a hurry. You know, this will teach you to love better. This will teach you to be a better, more compassionate person and steer to these things, right? So just stop what you're doing and realize in this moment, the most important thing is connecting with my person. And my person is confused, upset, has, you name it, emotion going on. Really fear, I think, is at the bottom of it, because can you imagine going through life being confused 24/7? I cannot. I thank God every day for my cognitive ability. And I just cannot, so I have a lot of empathy. But just, it's easier for you, and it works if you just stop, take that moment, relax, sit with them, give them time to talk, and be with them. Of course, avoid interrupting. And here's what it looks like. Oh, come on, we've got to go, you know, you're not dressed. What do you mean? Yeah, put your shoes on. We got to go this morning. We got to get out the door. And so dad's sitting on the bed, just like looking down after us and not doing anything. And so sometimes they're not going to speak, but just sitting down. And if they're not talking, then you talk. You know. It's early in the morning. You know what? I don't want to do this either. I'd rather stay home this morning. But here's what we're going to do. Because really, I love you. I want you to be healthy and live a long time. So, what if, you know, you don't have to wear your hard shoes. You can wear your house shoes. That's fine, Dad. And then we'll go to lunch. Or, you know, whatever the thing is that he wants to do and likes to do. Give them choices. You know, if it's impossible, well, we can reschedule this appointment. But I think the doctor really wants to see you. And, you know, honestly, what are you going to do? Pick him up and put him in the car? So honestly, if you can't get him on board, you're not going. You're just not going. So in so many ways, this is about surrender of control. It's about connecting with love. I bring it back to that. But give them choices and connect in the moment. Limit the distractions. I see this a lot out like in places or I am a gerontologist at Skylar Senior Care. We own 2 adult day health centers. One is in Forsyth, so this is our AAA here. And so people pick up their folks and drop them off. And I see people trying to have conversations. in aisles in the grocery store, in moments of transition. Do not do that. A moment of transition for someone with dementia is just like all they can do to understand, I'm walking out, I'm getting in the car, I'm going somewhere else, I'm changing my environment. That's a biggie for someone with dementia. Do not choose that moment to, correct or bring up a conversation or say, don't do this, don't do that, or you were rude to that cashier, Dad, or whatever it is, just not the right time. We have a supper club. I facilitate an early stage group in Atlanta for the dyad, for people living with dementia and their care partners. And we have a great supper club, and we meet in a private room. Because, what we do, if you have a healthy brain, your brain will discern between what you need to be paying attention to and what you don't. You can think a little bit about ADHD because that can be an issue in ADHD. But for instance, I can hear sounds of like an air conditioning, people are moving, y'all are, communicating with each other during this, but I'm concentrating on what I'm doing. That's a high function cognitive skill, high order cognitive skill. So you can't expect that with someone living with dementia. So for a conversation, you want it to be quiet and no distractions, one-on-one, simple. Simple as in, cut some of the fluff away, I don't know. I can't think of a situation, but if what we're trying to do is get mom to eat, okay, that's a big one. People who are living with Alzheimer's can be very slow about that, and sometimes if they're sitting at a table by themselves, in fact, I would say most times, I think it's not really good in general for a person with dementia to be eating by themselves because they do much better with it when someone else is with them. They're able to model your behavior. It becomes an activity and not just I'm eating, and sometimes the appetite can be affected. And so if what you're trying to do is get someone to eat and finish their dinner, which is folks to have good nutrition, definitely, it may take just sitting there. And let's talk about, you get a plate, and let's talk about if, most of our grandparents or parents of an age had some kind of garden when they were younger or something like that, and you just start a conversation about that, and so you're just talking in steady tones while you're eating, and all of a sudden that becomes not just a mom, you need to eat your food, but a true moment of connection between you and mom. So that kind of thing, keep it simple. Of course, the TV, and of course, let's just be nice and put the phone away. If you're distracted, if you're not in it 100%, then you cannot expect them to be. Nonverbal communication. Yes, again, Alzheimer's, and so I say Alzheimer's, I mean Alzheimer's or any related disease. It's not the worst type of dementia. It's simply the most common type of dementia. So that's why we're called the Alzheimer's Association, right? But yes, mom understands that you may be holding in every little bit of, negativity that you can because you're overburdened and you've tied the knot and you're hanging on to it kind of thing. But your body language and your facial expressions, she sees, she understands because again, Alzheimer's is not a bad case of stupid. So we feel things like that. If you're talking, this is a big one, like go over there. I see that a lot. I even see that with professionals. And maybe not in that mean tone, but over there, you need to be sitting over there. Well, over there is not a place, okay? That's not specific enough, and also it just doesn't work. So in this instance, I would say, hey, come with me. And then walk to where? Right here, Dad. Will you sit here for a minute? We're gonna do so and so. Or I'm gonna turn on this TV for you, golf, or whatever. You know what I mean? So you really have to take that little bit of extra energy, because over there is not a place and he has no idea what you're asking him to do. Make eye contact, because again, I'm confused 24/7, right? I'm in some form of confusion 24/7. Even in a very early stage. Now, you'll meet people that if you meet them, you know what I mean? Unless somebody told you, you would never know type of thing. And there is mild cognitive impairment, there is early stage dementia. But it is my experience that these types of things begin to happen just to a lesser degree in the very beginning of this degenerative process, which we believe, which we know, has started to occur 10 to 15 years before symptoms were noticed, right, or a diagnosis is made. Gentle physical contact, you're never going to want to pull, or, you're just going to want to pat. It's much better to direct, or, if you are making physical contact, I would say that a hug, a gentle touch on the arm. Again, unless somebody's walking out in the middle of the road, right? Use touch, sight, sounds, and taste. That's right. So you're communicating in other ways. And in the later stages, music. Music always is calming to everyone, whether you have Alzheimer's or not, so it's a good thing to have around. But as someone declines, it's that touch, that soft voice, that sip of a, peach milkshake from Chick-fil-A, if that was their favorite thing, that kind of thing. All right, we're going to hear from some caregivers here. Well, we're not hearing from a caregiver here, are we? I don't know why. I thought I turned it up.
I don't think it's on the actual spread file.
Last one for the
Start it over again.
And the middle stage was more pointing. Would be she would start to point to things versus saying them. So for instance, she had a fascination for airplanes all her life. So it would be driving, when she would see what she would look at the sky. In the early stages, she would say things, the last one for the see, the last airplane. And the middle stage was more just pointing. And so when that would happen, I would say, oh, there's the last one for the night. Right, so I would be that voice at that point. I knew what she was meant. And so then I tried to supplement some words myself. And then maybe she would actually repeat it or say something in regards to that. She was engaged in that conversation.
That's perfect, and that's what we mean by the person well, then you can do that. Let's see.
When my husband was in the late stage of dementia, I would always sit and talk with him. I would try to use a calm voice, make eye contact, give him hugs with his hand. But sometimes it was hard for me to think of new things to tell him. I didn't know if my words were too complex. But one thing that we had always shared was a love of the Harry Potter books. And so I made sure that I always kept a Harry Potter book in his room. And sometimes a visit for us would be holding hands, and I would just read a chapter from a Harry Potter book.
And that was
And that's
actually
actually
really
really connected and important for us
because as
because as a couple, we had a lot of memories of reading those stories together.
And
And I also was starting to read those stories with my son. So it felt like this way of making a family memory
that I
that I could hold on to
and
and share with both my husband and ours.
You see there, bless her heart, a young son and a husband dying from Alzheimer's. So I do that a lot too. I read with folks living with dementia. I found that it's just a great time to pass the time. It keeps them occupied. So in the afternoon or at times when you are normally seeing behaviors, and I do recommend keeping some sort of a diary. It doesn't have to be, formal, just in a notebook somewhere, writing it down. See if you don't see a pattern, because it's always better to be proactive rather than reactive. And then at that time of day, you can draw the shades, you can put soft music on if you want, or you can sit and read. One of the series of books I recommend is Chicken Soup for the Soul, because they're short and they touch the heart and they spur other conversations. So I really like those. But poetry, short stories, it's very helpful. It's a great tool. And it's also fun. All right, where's my cursor? Do I need to?
Can I say something?
Please do say something. Sure.
I like both of those clips.
Mhm.
So the first one, I could relate to what she was saying, especially like her mom was looking up and pointing to the airplane.
Mhm.
She used her speech, for her mom, because that's what mom would say. So what I find in caring for my dad is he loses his words when we're talking. He might be wanting to say, I was throwing the ball with the dog today. But it doesn't come out that way. So he's thinking it, and it's exhausting for me to fill in the blanks. That thing. Oh my gosh, I don't know what that thing is. So I'm guessing like 500 things. That little thing. Do you know how many little things there are? And what? The bone, the blah, 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 blah. And I really get so mentally exhausted sometimes trying to fill in the blanks. So surely I'm not the only person that's
No.
felt that.
You absolutely are not. And there is a symptom called aphasia, which happens with cognitive impairment diseases, whether it be Parkinson's. There are types of dementia there's a type of frontotemporal dementia called primary progressive aphasia. I've worked with many people, unfortunately, that have this, and I think that the loss of communication is one of the most heartbreaking things that can happen with a person with dementia. And there is a way, we have agency to try to keep that strong throughout this disease. So that means the person being independent with others without their care partner there, where they are having to express, or they are given the opportunity, I would say, to express their wants, needs, and desires. They are making new friendships and they are communicating. They are forming trusting bonds with others. This is the medicine. It's one of the healthy lifestyle interventions. And I completely empathize with you. There is a point at this disease where it is, I believe, necessary for the health of the care partner and for the health of the person living with dementia to seek support from professionals. Adult day health is one of the best ways to do it. That's why I've always loved adult day health. That is the gold standard in reducing risk for chronic disease. So if you have someone aging and they don't have dementia, or other chronic disease, or they have diabetes or something. I mean, any chronic disease in aging also raises your risk for other chronic disease in aging. Because unless this is not crystal clear to you, you know, your blood sugar level is not existing just on its own. It is connected to the entire rest of your body, including your brain, right? We are comprehensive whole people. We're not, oh, an arm and a leg and a leg, right? So, Adult Day Help has within its program these interventions. At Skylark, we seek to meet a true therapeutic level of intervention. But whether it be family coming in and spending time, or, you know, professionals coming in and spending time, or seeking out, you know, a social situation like Adult Day Help, I would say that you are at a point where you are under a considerable caregiver burden, and that symptom will worsen, right? Not stay the same. So we want to really make sure that a person can stay walking, can stay talking, can stay communicating, you know, with themselves. I don't know if there was a question embedded in that, or if you were just explaining.
Yes, I asked, was there any tips to, you know, like, so speaking to what you were saying, the doctor suggested that he go to the senior center 5 days a week. He shut that down fast because he was going 3 days a week. And someone suggested, why don't you just ask him if he'll try? So I like that. That worked well. So
Right. The independence, if he's appropriate for the senior center. Of course, you live in this area, right? So,
well, we live in Barrow County, but yes, being around his age group.
wherever your area agency on aging is.
Is this Barrow County? No, this is Hall.
No, I mean, I know the county, but they cover many counties, don't they? I know. Do you know? That's Northeast Georgia Area Agency on Aging. So there's an amazing Adult Day Help there in Minor, Georgia through Athens Community Council on Aging. And, you know, I was the program coordinator there before I came to work here. So I would definitely look into that. I think just the things that we've been talking about, if you don't know, you know, and it's really at the end of the day and you're stressed, here's what I would do. I'm just going to tell you what I would do. Dad, that's lovely. That sounds fun. You know, and if you think it's the dog, say something about the dog. But if you don't know, but just, you know, I think it's the warmth, right? It's your response to the communication. Yeah. Honestly, at this point, have you ever, so if you've ever raised a child, if you raised a child or raised somebody else's child or raised your siblings or had, you know, I don't know, I used to walk around all the time, my baby on the hip, you know, and I'd be like, okay, we're going to take these clothes out of the washing machine, we're going to put them in the dryer, okay, we're going to, you know, come out here and do this gardening, it was just blah, 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 talking to my child all day long, and I didn't know it at the time because that was before I got to graduate. But that was really good because that child was learning language, you know. It's also really good to sit and have meals together because language is a precursor to reading, and reading is a precursor. It all is mixed together. It's all about language. But I think what you're observing is truly a clinical symptom that will deteriorate and that there's really nothing you can do about. So I think your emotional response, remember Maya Angelou, they may not remember you and they may not remember what you said, but they will remember how you made them feel.
Yeah.
So that's the important thing. Kiss on the forehead, Dad, you're great.
Yes.
So glad you did that, you know? So glad you did that unknown thing at an unknown time with it, like you just can't know. So, you're welcome, and, I humbly say those things because we can have expertise in this area, but none of us has it all figured out right now. Alonzo's wife, Alicia, is living with Alzheimer's disease and no longer able to get out of bed on her own. Prior to her diagnosis, she worked at an elementary school as a librarian. She is no longer able to speak, and Alonzo is having a hard time communicating with her. This is making Alonzo feel less connected to Alicia. What could Alonzo do to try to communicate with Alicia and stay connected to her? Y'all just shout it out. What boxes? Should he hold her hand as he tells her what he did that day? Yay? Nay? Yay. Okay, so we'll click that one. If I can get the cursor where it needs to be. Should he put the radio on in Alicia's room? Okay, I heard a yes. Read one of her favorite books to her. Yeah. And then I think we're at a point where we all disagree with that. There's nothing Alonzo can do because she can't speak. Okay, so let's see what it said. All right. Now, this is an either or. So do I speak with her or do I just put the radio on? If you're looking to what's best for her, then it's preferable that you speak with her. But if you know this person and you have the experience that this music makes them happy, music from the age that the person remembers their music is extremely powerful. If you want a real game changer, do that. Shuffle up, have some stuff on your iHeart or your Apple or iTunes, whatever you have. Their favorite music, because I'm telling you what, if things start to go wonky at the adult day, and we turn on, some 50s music, or like Dean Martin, whoo, everything changes. Everybody's happy. Yeah.
At the end stages of my wife's Alzheimer's, very end stages, and she couldn't communicate, and I would play our favorite song, and her finger.
Aww. Yes, yes, yes. Music goes to a place in our brain, and it touches us. So, read one of the favorite books, yes, and I think you all kind of get it. This is the, well, wait a minute, we're going to continue here. So, this is a little portion of this of this presentation because you're going to need to communicate not just with the person with dementia, right? And often this is a big deal. Big deal. When do we tell people? How do we tell people in the beginning? It's usually, or it is not uncommon for one family member to take on the burden of caregiving and the other family members, due to whatever reasons, no judgment here, are not able to give that same time, that same commitment, and they become disconnected because of that. So, you need to be able to talk about your feelings, worries, and needs to family and friends, and have difficult conversations when you need to. Stay connected and check in regularly. Well, this is easy to read, right? It's easy to type. It's easy to put on a slide. Not so easy to do. I think that at the very beginning of a diagnosis, it is absolutely necessary to get with someone like me and get a care plan. Because I don't care if your brother lives in California, and there's a lot of things that distance caregivers can do. I don't care if your sister works 2 jobs and has 4 kids. Here's the truth of the matter. You need them and they need you. And what I see, if there's not a care plan that includes some sort of family and friends, if you will, I would say your intimate group, right? a care plan is going to address a lot of things. It's going to address clinical care and other care, and then it's going to address, you go from the telescope out to community, faith group, church, that kind of thing. Then you come in, you zoom in, and it becomes like family and friends. So you need a plan as the care partner for who these people are. I mean, just who is my care team? Let me identify them. And then let me communicate with the ones that are involved on a regular basis. So it might be a weekly email with some pictures, text messaging, apps maybe that you can use together. Just, look, Mom had a great day at the park, or, I'm having a hard time this week, or something like that. But is this for the benefit of the person living with Alzheimer's? Absolutely. Is it for the benefit of the primary care partner? Absolutely. But listen to me when I tell you, it is all equally of benefit to these family and friends, especially family. Because what I see, and maybe if you've been involved in this work, you've seen, is very complicated grief at the death of this person. It is hard to deal with it. It is hard. My brother told me 2 days ago, my mom was moving from me to June. And as you know, I hate to hear people say she has a dementia. It's like being a little pregnant, but she but it's time, and she lives in Rome and I live here, and it's going to be a big change for her. I am absolutely, equipped to understand where I'm taking her. And is it life-changing? Yes. So my brother was telling me, my beloved brother, who is involved, but this in Alabama, isn't going to have long-term with him, was saying, it's just very hard for me because it's not the mom. Mom is not the mom I had 10 years ago. And honestly, they had one of those mother-son relationships, very intimate, very close. Maybe even closer than she is to me, even though I'm my only daughter I have. I hate to equivocate you all on closeness. That's kind of crazy. But it was different, right? It was tight. And he's heartbroken over it. So sometimes I don't get over that. But that will, when that person goes, they're going to get hit with complicated grief, with guilt. I wish I coulda, I woulda, kind of thing. So you invite them in. And I'm a big, big fan of this. Let's just put it on the calendar. You live in town, but you work and you got kids or whatever. So once a month on this Saturday, you come and have lunch with mom. And let me tell you, here's what you should do when that happens. Hi, be back in 2 hours. That's what you should do, is take a break. But it's for them. It's for them. You're keeping the family ties there. So that's what I have to say about that. And you need to communicate with others. If you are dealing with this, you must be in a support group. Bill, do you have anything to say on the topic?
You definitely need to be in a support group. I was 4 years as a caregiver, to do it all alone. Mm-hmm. You talk about the patience. I was very patient until I hit the wall. And once I hit the wall, I had to go to plan B to get support. I shouldn't have waited that long. I should have had a plan and had the information up front. Well,
Yeah.
I think better for me and certainly for her.
And look at Bill. He's a very compassionate man, very respected here, founded Beyond Dementia Coalition, and he's a kind man. So he's not like, I don't see him as like the stubborn guy that thinks he's got it all figured out. I don't see Bill that way. I don't see many people feel that way. I think it's just this is my job and I'm going to do it. And I'm going to do it the way I've done everything else in my life to the very best of my ability, right? But support group is, in my opinion, not optional. Any of the counselors here can tell you about support groups. We have great support groups at the Alzheimer's Association. I do a virtual one through Skylark, and it is an Alzheimer's Association support group, and I'm sure, they're just here. And it'll be the best thing you ever did. Life-changing. I say get you a 3-ring binder and keep all your stuff in it. Keep everything in it. All the contacts, even if you know your sister's phone number by heart, keep all the things in there. You can divide it up, if you're like me and you love pens and stuff like that. I love office supplies. Get you some, make it more fun. But have you a 3-ring binder and have everything in there, including your directive, your Georgia Advanced Directive, your POA, everything in there, and keep it in a place where nothing will happen to it. That's what I have to say about that. Take notes during appointments. And yeah, again, we talked about the environment at a doctor's office. So here we go. The Alzheimer's Association supports you, appreciates you, and depends on you, especially at this time when our world here is changing quite a bit, and we're very concerned about cuts from the Health and Human Services to Alzheimer's care, including build our largest dementia infrastructure and, caregiver programs. So, and the Healthy Brain Initiative. I also want to tell you quickly, because I never end a conversation without saying this. If you are alive and you are a human, then you need to be practicing healthy brain. Children from a very early age need to do this. Your stress level matters. Happiness matters. Eating well matters. You don't have to do it for 6 months